Background. Geography. The Korean peninsula has been described as a natural state, geographically self-contained and with a culture entirely different to that of its neighbours. It is roughly 400 miles north to south and 120 miles across at its narrowest. It is mostly rugged terrain, with the Taebaek mountain chain running down its centre, making east-west communications difficult. The northern border with Manchuria, part of China, is defined by two rivers, the Yalu to the west and the Tumen to the east. The Primorsky Krai region of eastern Russia shares a 30-mile border with Korea's northeast corner as well. The important Russian port of Vladivostok is some 100 miles further to the northeast. Japan lies only 100 miles off the southeast coast. These three powerful neighbours have jockeyed for influence in the region for hundreds of years. To a degree, Korea has been caught in the middle of this rivalry. The climate may best be described as hostile. The summers are hot and dry, the winters terribly cold. Between the two, spring rains can turn much of the landscape to mud. In 1950, transport links were primitive, with very few roads or railways and only two major ports. These were at Busan on the southeast tip and Incheon, serving the capital city of Seoul, midway up the west coast. They would become crucial during the war. Culture. The Korean language, food, and mindset are unlike those of China or Japan. Such distinctions took shape through geographical isolation. From prehistory, the peninsula was relatively self-contained. Linguistically, for instance, Korean is generally accepted to be a unique language, completely unrelated to those of its neighbours. Most scholars regard the overlap with Japanese as a later phenomenon, brought about through contact. Although food is based on rice, vegetables, and fish, the cooking styles are not those of northern China. The same is true of religion, with a strong shamanistic tradition, architecture, music, and dance. Once Korea's history became dominated by neighbouring states, however, this cultural purity began to be diluted and cross-pollinated. For example, spoken Korean, and its precursor dialects, was first transposed into the Chinese Hanja script. The culture, therefore, reflects the geography and supports the idea of Korea as a natural state. For these reasons, despite a difficult history and continuing division, this is a region with a strong national identity, maintained in the face of frequent conquest. A history of conflict. Korea was repeatedly invaded by China from about 200 BC. In 1219 it was the turn of the Mongols, with Genghis Khan leading the first of 4 large incursions by these fierce nomadic warriors. By the 16th century, Japan had emerged as a powerful regional player, and it too sought the conquest of the peninsula. The result was devastation, widespread slaughter, economic and agricultural collapse. Little surprise, then, that by the early 19th century, Korea had become something of a hermit nation, anxious to minimize contact with outside cultures. Under the Joseon dynasty, this policy worked for a time, with a period of relative tranquility and prosperity. Chinese suzerainty was formally acknowledged, but without onerous conditions. The growing imperial ambitions of Japan and Russia, however, combined with their superior technology and large armed forces, would shortly undermine this wish to be left alone. In 1876, the Joseons signed an overtly exploitative treaty with Japan, granting her significant trading rights. 6 years later, in what for a time proved a shrewd piece of diplomacy, Korea signed a treaty with the United States. Brokered by China, this deal helped to offset the influence of the Japanese, who were already basing troops in Korea. Tensions were high, as China and Japan controlled different factions within the weak Korean government. In 1885, both China and Japan agreed to withdraw all of their forces from the peninsula.